Rayner will not take him up on this. The woman is as thick as mince, and I'm sorry, she used to take the mick out of people who went to Eton. I would far rather have someone who went to Eton as my Prime Minister than someone who left school at 15. She really is one of those frauds, I think. Trump did not want to talk to Starmer. He doesn't want to talk to any politician, but he adores King Charles. And that speech it made me want to cry a bit. You're making our little island look very good. If Starmer had nothing to hide, the Privileges Committee would not bother him, but he clearly has got something to hide. The Labour Party is now known as the party of the paedophiles. I'm not sure what you have to do now to get kicked out. Do you have to kill somebody?
Hello, welcome to the Daily Expresso. I'm JJ Nishobi, but as always, more importantly, this is Carol Malone. My Corolla. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good, yeah. You just said something nice to me now. I've Cameron just said he liked my shirt, which is unusual.
I was going to repeat it on camera.
Yeah.
I actually like your blouse.
Well, the trouble is the lighting in the studio will still make it look terrible, whatever happens. Everything looks grey, but never mind. It is bright purple for people out there.
Did somebody else stress you today or something?
No, I did it myself, but I just thought I'm declaring summer now.
Okay.
I'm just declaring summer. Sun's out and it's lovely.
I like it. It's a winner. It's a vote winner for me.
Thank you very much.
Speaking of which,
right.
Vote winners and losers, Starmer survives for now. So the MPs voted. They failed to get enough votes for a parliamentary investigation over claims that he misled MPs. He's okay, right?
Well, he's not okay, is he? I mean, I think whatever shred of credibility he might have had left has now gone with this. Because to get that vote, he had to he had to make a 3-line whip on all his MPs. And even then, some of them rebelled. 14 actually rebelled and voted the other way, and 54 abstain. Now that's bad. That's your MP saying to you, "This is the wrong thing to do."
Yeah.
But how shameful that we have a Prime Minister who literally should have referred himself to the Privileges Committee. Remember, this is the process that he used on Boris Johnson to oust Johnson. And he hounded Johnson saying, you have to go before the Privileges Committee. And credit to the Tories, they said he should too, just to clear everything up. But this man runs away from his mistakes all the time. If Starmer had nothing to hide, the Privileges Committee would not bother him, but he clearly has got something to hide. And Kemi Badenoch has come right out today and said he lied. He did mislead Parliament. I mean, I'm loving her at the moment.
She's great, isn't she?
I'm just, her cojones. She's got more cojones than Keir Starmer, that's for sure. But and she's calling him out all the time. He should be ashamed of himself. To have a whip your MPs to save your own sorry backside is appalling. But it hasn't done him any good. A lot of his MPs now are saying openly he shouldn't be there. And one was quoted in the paper saying, he's made it so that the Labour Party is now known as the party of the paedophiles, which is very damning on it. But, he will do anything to hang on to power.
Yeah.
I don't know how... I don't know what kind of bubble he lives in, but does he not know the country hates him? And what is really bad now is in whipping his MPs to support him. Those MPs now have to go back into their constituencies just before the local elections, and they have to pitch for Labour and for the leader. And how are they going to be able to defend the indefensible? How are they going to defend a leader who was too scared, too scaredy cat to hold himself up to be investigated? And the only reason he is doing that, the only reason he will not do that is because he has got something to hide. There are lots of questions in all the papers today that he should answer. Sir Philip Barton yesterday in this Commons inquiry, he stuffed him right in it and said, yes, he did know because he had told him and he made it quite clear. He said he was informed by, I think it was email, of exactly what was going on. So, I just think, Kemi's saying now he has to go, but he doesn't have to go, does he? Because this government has made it so that no matter what you do, I'm not sure what you have to do now to get kicked out? Do you have to kill somebody?
I think so. Yeah.
And even then, he'd probably blame Morgan McSweeney for it. And talking to Morgan, he gave evidence yesterday saying it was definitely a mistake to appoint Peter Mandelson. This is the man who rang up people in the Foreign Office and said, get this effing appointment done right now. Mm-hmm. And he's sitting there yesterday pretending that he's only just realised it was a bad idea. And I'm thinking, did no one on the committee say to him, have you found your phone yet? Because actually that would have proved without question the exchanges that went on between various ministers in the civil service. But, the sign of a good all politicians make mistakes, all of them, no matter who they are. But the good ones admit to their mistakes. They own up to them. They don't dob other people in. I mean, I wonder how many more human sacrifices Starmer is going to make to save his own backside, to save his job. It seems that everything he does these days, including Mandelson appointment, was not about what was best for this country. It was what's best for him, what was going to keep him in Downing Street. Yeah. And that is not what a leader should be doing.
Absolutely. Well, Badenoch also suggested that Labour MPs were acting like sheep.
Well, they are acting like sheep, They about him behind the scenes, and they give little, unattributed comments to journalists saying what a failure he is. Mm-hmm. But then when he whips them into, they do follow like sheep. It's pathetic. Kemi said a few days ago, this was a moment of for the Labour Party to show its integrity as a group, to actually refer this man, who she says has lied about misleading Parliament, to refer him to the Privileges Committee, and they couldn't do it. Yeah. They are pathetic, and as I say, sitting behind the scenes saying what a terrible man he is. But this will make voters look at this government, and in 14 years of what Labour called Tory sleaze, Labour has managed to do it in 14 months. Remember in Starmer's first week in office, there was catastrophe around him because it was exposed that he'd taken 30-odd grand's worth of clothes from Lord Ali, one of Labour's biggest donors, that he'd had 2 or 3 grand given to him in spectacles.
There's the Sue Gray debacle.
The Sue, all of that. So this was all within weeks of him being appointed. And I don't think there's been a clear week since where he hasn't been in trouble. And, he shames our country. He shames our democracy because, everything he would scream about the Tories, he has done and worse, and yet he refuses to be held accountable. And it points to what kind of man. This is the man who said he was going to clean up politics, that he was a man of integrity, that he would never, ever dump the people who worked for him in it. He would own up to his mistakes. He's done none of those things. Yeah. And I'm not even talking yet about the fake promises he made about what he was going to do for the country. Going to be minimal taxes. Going to cut welfare. Isn't a single thing that he said he was going to do. But worse than that, he has covered himself in shame. Mm-hmm. The man is... they're just like, you run out of words. I write stuff about Starmer every day, and I've just run out of verbs now. There's no more terrible words I can use to describe him because they all sound hackneyed now because we've used them all before. Yeah. And yet still, he's in position. Still, he's there.
Well, this smells like a cover-up. That's what it feels like.
It is, without question, a cover-up.
And it's just going to make the public distrust politicians ever more.
There's never been a more obvious cover-up than this. We always kind of suspect cover-ups. We always kind of think we know that when a big event happens, we always know we're being scammed and lied to. Yeah. But this is just so obvious. You didn't have to have a vetting procedure to know that you shouldn't be appointing Peter Mandelson to one of the plushest jobs in government. He didn't need a vetting committee's report. He knew all the information, all the dodginess about Mandelson was already in the public domain. We knew.
Yes.
You wouldn't. Mandelson would have to be vetted to. There's this incredible Irish MP whose name I've forgotten, but people have got to tune into Twitter to watch it. And she said something like yesterday. She's a Northern Irish MP. She said yesterday he'd need to be vetted to take over what she said, a local school or an allotment or something. And she's right. We all knew about this guy's history, and yet still Starmer ignores process. Yeah. The thing that he lives and dies by. To get him into position. He even told the King and the rest of government that Mandelson had been appointed before the vetting procedure had even begun.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to pretend that due process was followed is a lie. It's a blatant lie.
Yeah.
You know, you don't like to call politicians, and especially prime ministers, liars. You know, you hesitate to use that word.
Yeah.
But, you know, that said, it's a word that he bandied around about Boris Johnson for 2 years. I mean, it was just, he every day in Parliament he called him a liar, and yet now he's affronted that he's being called one, and yet he won't put himself up for scrutiny, so it can be proved that he's not a liar.
Do you think this is going to affect the local elections?
Absolutely, without question. You know, I was talking to someone inside the Labour Party today who said that whatever the predictions are for the losses, they're going to be way worse than even the worst predictions. That's what they think now. So, yes, and so when you know, Labour MPs go to those constituencies now, they're going to have to try and justify what Starmer has done. And this is the shame of the man. He's put all of his MPs in an impossible position.
Yeah.
Yes, they're sheep, and yes, they shouldn't have voted, but he has put them in an impossible position, and they're going to have to defend on the doorsteps what is indefensible. Why didn't he refer himself to a privileges committee if he had nothing to hide? And the fact that he didn't and has whipped his MPs into saying that was not necessary shows he clearly does have something to hide.
While Starmer's will to survive continues, and he is trying to bring back Miss Rayner. He wants to bring her back to cabinet so that, I mean, I don't think this makes sense, really. He thinks by bringing Angela Rayner back into cabinet that will keep her happy and then she won't try and mount a leadership attempt. I don't think that's going to happen. I think she'll go for it regardless.
Which shows how completely stupid and clueless he is. You know, I mean, I read some stuff in the papers today saying that you know, he likes Angela Rayner. No, he doesn't. He really doesn't like Angela Rayner at all. But he is scared of her, and he's scared of a trade union power, and he knows that she can control that. So that's why he wants her back in cabinet. And as you say, he thinks it's going to stave off any leadership contest. Well, it's not. And I don't even see how he can be asking her. It's obscene that this woman, who was still being investigated by HMRC for fiddling her taxes, something which she berated the Tories for doing all the time and called for their resignations. So she did get fired for doing that, but she might walk straight back into exactly the same job, because the talk is they're saying they should demote David Lammy as PM.
Not a bad idea.
As Deputy PM.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
Well, no, they should demote him anyway from everything and throw him into the wilderness. But they're saying that she should get the Deputy PM's job, the job she had before she was fired for fiddling her taxes. So it seems to me in this government, you can do anything. And they fire you as a token gesture, but then you're going to be back. And the thing is, I think Rayner will not take him up on this, because if and when he gets ousted, which he will after these election results, or a move will be made on him, she doesn't want to be seen to be part of the cabinet where it's all gone wrong. So I think she would want to keep herself clean from that and go back into whatever new administration there was. And there's talk now, because I wrote a piece earlier this week saying that her as Prime Minister would be catastrophe for this country. The idea that this thick as mince woman who left school at 15 without an O-level. And yes, they are important. Education is important when you're running a country.
But so is real-world experience, and she has that.
She has got none. The woman, she's had one proper job in her life, and that she was a carer. She worked in social care for a while, and then she went to be a trade union rep, and that's what she was doing for all the years before she came into government. So she's never really, she talks about, you know, being out and about with the workers. She's never really been one of the workers. She talk, you know, we're supposed to all celebrate her, the fact that she's come from a council estate and she's now in Westminster and she talks with a northern accent, so she has to be good. No, she doesn't. The woman is as thick as mince, and I'm sorry, you know, she used to take the mick out of people who went to Eton. I would far rather have someone who went to Eton as my Prime Minister than someone who left school at 15.
Why would you rather someone from Eton rather than someone from a council
Because
estate?
at least they have the basics of an education and an intellect, and I think she has neither. You know, she's famed for not understanding policy. She knows nothing about foreign affairs. She is so she's so light on foreign affairs knowledge. The idea that she could go and stand on the global stage in front of presidents and prime ministers and heads of state and hold her own is a joke. I mean, it is a sick joke for this country.
I think she'd be okay at it.
No,
not the foreign policy part, granted, but knowing what it is to struggle, knowing what it's like to go without. I'd rather have that person in charge of this country than someone.
Don't be silly. She hasn't been struggling. She hasn't been struggling since she joined the trade union movement. She's not struggling. The minute she got her job as Deputy Prime Minister, she got a posh Admiralty yacht. She went out and bought beds that were $7,000 each, 2 new beds on taxpayers' cash. That's not struggling. She really is one of those frauds, I think. And she took stuff from Ali as well, took money for clothes from Ali, which actually they're terrible clothes apart from anything else. But, imagine that on the world stage with that bright bottle green tracksuit, her suit thing, vaping and swigging wine. No, that's not what we want representing this country. However, the talk over the past few days is that she's been asked to make a pact with Andy Burnham, who would be a more acceptable face than her as Prime Minister. But, really Burnham is he's just Starmer Mark II. He tried for the leadership twice before when he was when he was in cabinet, and he didn't get it for the simple reason he wouldn't be any good at it. And the fact he's been mayor of Manchester for however many years does not prepare you for being prime minister and running a country. And if they thought he couldn't do it all those years ago, why do they suddenly think he can do it now? He's got no more relevant experience running a small. It's not a small city, Manchester's a big city. Running a city is not the same as running a country. Mm-hmm. And he's still the same dullard he was back then. However, he is more impressive than she is.
Okay.
In that sense. I could see him on a world stage. I do think he'd be able to hold his own on a world stage. And I think if the Labour Party is to repair itself in any way, shape or form, to make sure it's not unelectable for the next 4 decades, they cannot have Angela Rayner in pole position. It has to be someone who looks better, sounds better, and is not the kind of person to be calling opposition MPs scum and homophobes and racists, which she has done.
Yeah.
The woman has no filter, and you can't have that as a leader.
So let's move on to King Charles and his state visit to the US. Carol, I think it's gone pretty well.
It's gone brilliantly well. I always believed, and I've been banging on about it for weeks, that when all Labour politicians are saying he shouldn't go, Trump's a bully and he shouldn't go. These people are stupid. They don't understand what politics is all about. It's about schmoozing. It's about swallowing it. It's about going. Anyway, he's gone there and it's pretty, he has proved, people over the past few weeks have been talking about the relevancy of the monarchy now, because of Andrew mainly, and saying, what's the point of why we're spending all this money? Well, this is why. Because the soft power of the monarchy in this instance has done more than the hard power of this government could have done. Because Trump did not want to talk to Starmer. He doesn't want to talk to any politician, but he adores King Charles. I keep wanting to call him Prince Charles. He's king. He adores King Charles. He respects him. I think he's more than a bit in awe of him. And if you watch Trump around the king, when they're in the Oval Office and he's holding those press conferences, when he has, whoever they are, other world leaders, Trump owns the room. His body language is very aggressive. He puffs his chest out and he owns the room.
Yeah.
He's not like that with the king. He sits back. He's in awe of him. He's deferential to him, almost reverential to him. So yes, he will listen to what Charles will have to say. And if you listen to the speech, it addressed everything. Mm-hmm. In an oblique kind of way. It referenced the Middle East. It referenced Iran. It referenced the Falklands. It referenced
NATO.
It referenced having rows and then coming together again, renewal and reconciliation, everything that's been happening. And I think, government diplomacy, doesn't write government policy or dictate government policy. However, it does open doors and keep them open that are closed to politicians. And I think that is incredibly important. And of course, his mother was the master of soft power. She visited 13 presidents in her reign, and she didn't go because they were friends or to be friendly. She went when times were bad, and she went to smooth things over. Historically, she went during the Suez Crisis. In 1957, she went on a state visit because in 56, so it happened, America were furious with us and didn't really want to talk to us. The special relationship was under huge threat. She smoothed that over. And she went on a state visit in 57. And that was a clear sign then that relations had been mended. Yeah. She helped make that happen. And she did that on so many other occasions. And that's exactly what Charles has done here. So if anybody asks what the monarchy is all about, that's what it was all about. And, you know, he looked noble. He looked regal. The Senate, he had something like 3 separate standing ovations in front of Congress. They listened to him, and that speech it made me want to cry a bit because I was proud of him. I just thought you're making our little island look very good.
Well, you know what? I did think they were hypocrites, the Americans, on that. I think Charles' speech was fantastic, but the same Democratic senators who were there, stood in Congress, standing up and applauding him, are the same ones who a few weeks ago were supporting the No King protest.
Yes.
Which suggests to me is actually they just hate Donald Trump.
Yes. But until you're in the presence of royalty,
yeah,
you don't know the effect it's going to have on you. And I think it was one of those. The same with the Queen. You know, Queen was this little woman with her little courty shoes and her coloured coats, and then she walked into a room and it stopped because she just had that. She had this amazing presence. And I think it's the same with Charles. And he talked about, you know, this decades-old special relationship, you know, and I thought his presence to Trump was amazing. Did you see it? It was a bell. Years ago, and I can't remember the entire story, but there was one of our warships was called HMS Trump, and I think it was from the Second World War. I could be wrong, First or Second World War, but we had a ship called HMS Trump, and they got the bell, the big bell off that ship, and they brought it over to him.
What a fantastic gift!
Trump will have that in the Oval Office, and every time he wants to rip Starmer's head off, he'll look at that bell and he'll think, no, hopefully he will.
But you know what that says to me as well? That
what?
Charles has got the best advisors around him.
Yes.
Something that Starmer's desperately lacking.
Yes. Yeah. And also, you know, when Trump came over here, they sourced a whiskey that was from where his mother was from or something like that. They went to enormous trouble to make him feel good. Mm-hmm. Camilla is donating something called a Rue doll to a museum in Washington, and this doll they have this full collection of A.A. Milne's characters. There's original characters, the original doll, but what they didn't have was the Rue doll, and we had it, and Camilla's given it to them. I mean, another fantastic present.
What are they going to give up next? The Chagos Islands? Bring back that doll.
Well, no, but you know, this will make Trump think long and hard about. You know, I mean, I know the cynics will say, "Give it 3 weeks and he'll be insulting us again," and maybe he will. But I was proud of our king.
That king
this
great.
week.
The only mistake Trump has made during this trip is that he revealed something that Charles had said to him in private.
He did. He said he thinks the same as me, that Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon. Well, you know, I can completely believe Charles said that. What would he say? They should have one? Cool. I don't think that's a big thing to reveal. I don't. What he was doing in his like childish way was saying, you know, me and my mate Charles agree on something.
Yeah.
And you know,
bad etiquette. He shouldn't reveal what the king says to him.
He really probably shouldn't, but it wasn't a big thing. I didn't think. I think if he'd said he thinks the same as me on Iran, specifically about whatever. He agrees with me about the bombing. That would have been a terrible thing. Mm-hmm. But he didn't. He said he agrees with him that Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon. And that will be part of Charles' diplomacy. He will be saying, I agree with you on this, but what about that? Mm-hmm. And that's how he'll be doing it. He's not going to tell Donald what to do. He's just going to give him some pointers about how he might be thinking about some things.
Right.
And that's what he went for. And you know, the thing is, that speech, you looked at that speech and you knew that Starmer had a hand in that because it was everything Starmer wanted to address.
So are you praising Starmer then? You're saying well done to Starmer for this?
No, I'm not at all. I'm saying that Starmer gave him all the things that he wanted him to you know, calm Trump on, but the king put his own spin on it, his own noble, regal spin, and didn't make it sound like he'd been told by the government to come here and do this. No, I think this was the most important assignment of his reign so far. and he
He passed with flying colours.
He did it brilliantly.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to reform, because they are claiming, Zia Youssef is saying that if Nigel Farage wins the next general election, the reform will crack down on illegal traveller camps, and also they're going to clamp down on people who are fly tipping and give them fines and things.
The fly tipping thing, I agree with that. I think one of the major problems depends if you're a serial fly tipper or you just dump the odd bed somewhere. All are terrible things, but I think the problem for a lot of people, especially if you've got no money, you go to your local tip and try to dump a bed, it can be up to 40 quid. If you're trying to dump furniture or sofas or garden waste, it can be between 20 and 40 quid. Well, some people just don't have that kind of money. So I think it's incumbent on local authorities to reduce the prices for that, because all they're doing is raking in cash because they're overspending on everything else. So they could cut that. But, I think serial fly tippers, people who have businesses who dump their rubbish all over the countryside, they should have the book thrown out the big time. And I read today that the fines are something like £1,000. There should be way more than that. They should be to the point where no one who has a business will ever think about doing it again because it'll bust them. And that's how it should be, because you cannot blight our countryside with tons and tons of rubbish.
Well, even here in Canary Wharf, it's not really fly tippers, it's just serial litterers. And there's a woman, we saw the footage this morning, woman downstairs, chain smoking about 15, 20 cigarettes.
Throwing them on the ground.
Throw them on the ground. I have the description here. She had blonde hair, glasses, and a purple/lilac blouse. And she was swearing like a trooper.
I've just realised, we're trying to say it's me. The purple blouse given away. No, not me. Haven't smoked for 35 years. But people who do that should be made to pick them up with their teeth, frankly, because it's disgusting. It's violent. I mean, smoking is bad enough, but doing it. I've seen drivers in cars chuck whole ashtrays out onto the road. I seriously.
Yeah, it's vile.
And I'm going to get punished one day, but I do say to people who you've dropped something there.
Yeah.
And usually I get, the expletive. I usually get that, but sometimes it does shame people into picking it up.
Absolutely.
But my husband says stop doing it because someone's going to punch you.
We probably will do. People are crazy.
Yeah, but as for the travellers part of that question, what I don't understand about travellers, JJ, is that if they want to travel, why do they go and dump their wagons on one place for 6 months at a time, a year at a time? Why do they buy land if they're travellers and put a concrete base on and just put loads of caravans on? That's not being a traveller, is it?
Well, not in the, I guess, in the old classic term of, like with Roma travellers. I guess that was different. But modern ones in this country, who a lot of them have come from Ireland, this is it. This is the new way that culture operates. The majority of them are on authorised land. I think it's like 78% of them are on authorised land or live in bricks and mortar homes, but still identify as travellers.
Not really travellers, are they?
No. But it's that tiny, small amount of them who are going around and
it's that tiny, small amount that litter the countryside in the most disgusting way. If you want to travel, fine, travel, but clear up after you. Don't leave all your tins and your old food and your potato peelings behind you. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And if you do it, expect to be fined enormous, extortionate amounts of money, because it's disrespectful to the people who live near you. Yeah. And it's also quite frightening, because, we know that in various instances where travellers land, the crime rates increase around that area. Now, I'm not saying that all travellers are thieves. I wouldn't dream of saying that. However, what I am saying is that crime rates do rise. And when locals confront them to say, pick up your mess, there's aggression. There's often aggression. It's not right. It's not fair. Well, it just isn't fair.
Reform are saying that they will sort this out.
Good. I mean, they've got a lot to sort out. Actually, I kind of wish that before they get to the travellers, they'd stop the boats first.
Yeah.
And then I want them to tackle the welfare bill and get all these people these scammers who are claiming benefits for having a bit of ADHD and a bit of anxiety.
Anything else on your wish list? Go on, tell it. Well, Nigel watches.
No, but he's got those things to do first. And then I think the travellers are last on that long list, actually, don't you think?
Yeah, I say it's a small amount. There's something like, it's estimated there's 300,000 travellers in the UK.
But that many of them can cause chaos.
But 300,000 in the UK total, and 86% of them are not
But
unauthorised
if
sites.
even 10 of them come to a small area, a small village, and park on the village green, and all their stuff tumbles out and all the rubbish, it's not fair. It's just not fair. You know, music blaring out of caravans, you know, whatever they're doing, it's not fair.
We should just send in you, Carol. We'll send in 100
Please,
Carols.
Don't tempt
For
me.
every one traveller, we'll send
Don't
2
tempt
Carol
me.
Malones.
Don't tempt me, because I would. I'm kind of waiting for. Did you see? I wrote about it in my column last week. There was a trans woman on Twitter last week who was like 6'4" and burly and big, and he said he'd just gone into.
She said.
No, I'm sorry.
She said.
Not doing it. Nope. He went into the women's toilets at Waterloo, and they didn't bat an eyelid. Well, they wouldn't, because they'd have been absolutely
I know the one
terrified.
you're talking about.
Did you've seen him? Yeah, you've
yeah.
seen him. And he said they didn't bat an eye. Well, that's because they're terrified. And you know, the thing about this is, people like this trans woman take that silence as acquiescence, as agreement.
Yeah.
It's not. It's fear. It's abject fear, because often when confronted, trans people get aggressive. They do. We've seen them on marches holding the banners. You know,
Yeah.
the only good turf is a dead turf.
Yeah.
Decapitate turfs. And for anybody who doesn't know what a turf is, it's people who question.
Women, trans exclusionary.
Yeah.
revolutionary
So it's people who
feminists.
question
Yeah.
the trans ideology. So you know, I wish that person would come into a public toilet near me. I do, because I would have no compunction in saying, "Get out!
Yeah.
You can't be here."
And that person said as well, they said that if a woman had a problem with me being in the toilets, I would leave and wait for the woman to leave, and then I'd go back in again.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's not on. That's like saying, no. And what he also said was, if I went into a man's toilet dressed like this, I wouldn't make it out again.
Yeah, yeah,
So what, women have to put up with
Yeah.
it when men won't?
yeah.
I just think, you know, women's spaces should be sacrosanct. You know, in a building like this, I don't care if men use the women's toilets. I'm not that bothered, but I do care in public spaces, and I do care when they look like that person. So I think women are generally frightened, and they don't want to hurt people, they don't want to upset people, but the reason they don't talk is not because they agree with it, it's because they're frightened.
Yeah, no, you're right. Carol, that's all we've got time for. I'm going to put you in a cab.
I'm on a road now. I could actually, you know, the cab driver's going to get it in the neck, because I'm going to just rant at him now about whatever. Who knows?
Please leave your comments below. Also, like, share, subscribe, and hit the hype button. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.